I am José Manuel García-Lomas Allen-Perkins. This video is about something as essential as the relationship between motivation, attitudes, and human behavior. Let's start by defining what we understand by motivation, attitudes, and human behavior, and then see how they relate to and affect our own behavior, both in our private life and in our professional life. Motivation. What is motivation? We have already indicated it in previous videos. It is to give cause or reason for a thing. It is the reason why we do something, and it is what influences what the man, woman does. Attitudes. It is a way of contemplating or judging a situation, a fact, etc. The external reflection of the motivation of the human being. It is a disposition of spirit, a feeling somehow manifested on many occasions throughout body language or nonverbal communication, the NVC. And behavior. It is my way of acting based on my motivations and my attitudes. And to point out that it is difficult to distinguish between motivation and attitudes. Finally, the aptitude with P. It is the latent or patent faculty, capacity that a person has to perform an act. Let's take an example. Let's imagine that we want to represent a person, and for it we draw the following scheme. In the inner cycle we are going to represent the medullary part of that person with his aptitudes and motivations. Surrounding this inner cycle we draw an outer cycle which contains the attitudes of the person that in principle can be positive or negative. Let us imagine that that person is in really a nonconformist, anti-system young man. This man's basic motivation is money, economic profit, and his attitude towards banking is positive for him and negative for society, considering banking unjust and exploitative. This young man walks down the street and realizes that he is passing in front of a bank. His motivation for money when he sees the bank is reinforced by his positive attitude for him and negative for society. To hate the capitalist bank, and we have already said because he considers the bank unjust and exploitative. His motivation for money and his negative attitude toward the bank make that when he sees the bank in front of him, the bank is an stimulus which puts him in motion toward the bank, thinking that time has come to assault it. In other words, his motivation for money, reinforced by his negative attitude towards the bank that he is now seeing, makes him develop a behavior that leads him to want to assault the bank. With the bank acting as an stimulus, but at that moment the figure of a heavily armed security guard emerges from the entrance of the bank, who looks him into the eyes, guessing his bad intentions, and in that moment the attitude that develops our young anti-system toward the figure of the security guard with his machine gun, that negative attitude for him, so the guard can mean if he shoots him or takes him prisoner, his negative attitude towards the security guard slows down his motivation for money and prevents him from robbing the bank. In summary, 1. Everyone has motivations. 2. To manifest that motivation, I need a stimulus, in this case the bank. 3. But this stimulus can be strengthened or weakened by people's attitudes. Another example, a trainee who attends a sales training, motivated by the opportunity provided for his own organization for his development, but shortly after starting his training, a reprimand or a negative action from his coach towards him changes his attitude and slows down his motivation for the training he has just started. We've already pointed out in previous videos that human beings always try to realize their main motivations, and that therefore there is a motto, a catchword, and it is know and respect the motivations of others. So, how can we act on the motivations of others? If, as we just said, human beings always try to realize their motivations, well, acting on the attitudes of the person, reinforcing or slowing through their attitudes their motivations. How to classify people's attitudes? 1. Attitudes can be positive or negative. 2. Attitudes can be rational or emotional. 3. Attitudes can be active or passive. Whether the attitudes are positive or negative, they constitute an instant and simple act. Whether the attitudes are rational or emotional, and active or passive, is a behavior. That is to say, it is a process. Temporal process occurs in time, and complex process consisting of several acts and elements. Therefore, attitudes can be positive as well as rational or emotional and active or passive, or negative as well as rational or emotional and active or passive. Returning to the case of the young anti-system, the fact of being an anti-system, positive attitude for him and negative for the society, and therefore his attitude is one of hatred for the bank that he considers unjust and exploitative, reinforces his motivation for money and tries to rob the bank that is his stimulus. Therefore, positive, rational, active attitude. But when he sees the security guard with his machine gun, his negative attitude toward what the guard means to him provokes a break on his motivations for money and stops him in his action to rob the bank. Therefore, negative, rational, passive attitude. If you are interested in our videos, I suggest that you give a like and subscribe to our channel for the videos that are to come.